Alright, so I am back up. Please let me know in the chat how the audio levels are. I'm gonna put the sound up a little bit before we go live visually. And just let me know if there are any problems audio-wise before we go crazy, because I don't want to do a whole show with like completely messed up audio levels, so I'm gonna bring in the rest of the people. So can you guys just sort of jibber-jabber a little bit? You know, the standard.
Hello.
Hey,
Jarvis?
I just want
For now,
to
just
point
so you
out
know.
if you can't hear Jarvis, it's probably not the audio levels.
You have anything
Just
fascinating to say,
gotta
Jarvis?
get the
I'm
running
here.
joke in there
Alright.
ASAP.
So is everyone, just like before we go nuts, is everybody, can you hear the other people that are not me? Is the audio okay?
Can you hear Cedric?
I
Is Cedric
can
good?
definitely hear the other people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I
Cedric's
know,
pretty
I
sweet.
know you guys can, but like I said, last time it was totally fine for me, the audio. Okay. It seems like it's alright in chat, so I'm going to throw it over. We're a little bit off center today, but I don't want to go too crazy. But we've got,
I do not see any faces on
No,
the
he's about to bring him up.
yeah, I
on
brought him
who's
up.
going. All right.
So, so
Sweet.
here we are.
Apparently,
Welcome to Game State for this week. Today is, I guess we are Wednesday, May the 16th. That looks about accurate. This week
okay.
on the program, we're going to be talking largely about the fallout of PT Barcelona, but we'll also touch a little bit on the Star City event that happened this weekend. I don't. Whoops, sorry. Just bring that off to the side. I don't remember where it was off the top of my head, but there was also a Star City event, and we have a
Madison.
Varsity Games
Madison.
Madison. Yeah.
Yep.
And we have a couple other things to touch on. There were a couple interesting judge rulings, and I'm sure we'll get off track and have various levels of discourse. But before we go too much further, I will introduce our regular show hosts who we have back again. We have no special guest today because we're sad. I am in the top left. I am myself, Adam. A winner is you, Ragsdale. Beside me to the right, also Cedric is in a wind tunnel.
Oh, oh my God, Cedric.
Okay, beside me to the right, we have Steven Joe and Ribs Flavel.
Hey guys.
And then below him, we have Cedric Phillips.
Hi. Hello, everybody.
And last but not least, first in all of our hearts, we have Jarvis Yu.
Hello.
So,
Nicely done, Jarvis. Good job on talking.
yeah, I mean, well talked. Let me just bring this thing up. Yeah, let's get right to it. I think we should go to PT Barcelona first. Like, it's the biggest thing we're talking about. We're probably going to talk about it for the longest amount of time. The first thing I wanted to talk about before we get into any discussion from, say, Jarvis, who was actually there, was the coverage. Since it's not, I don't view it as being sort of a part of the event, but I think it's something we should talk about nonetheless. 3 out of 4 of us were watching through the coverage, so I think we probably saw more coverage than live game, and I think my personal take on it was that it was vastly improved from the last PT. That's not to say that I think it was perfect, but I think it was just a step up across the board, pretty much, and vastly more pleasurable to watch. So, what do you guys got, Steven? You're next in the wheel. What was your take on the coverage?
Yeah, I liked it. It was the relay setup as well was pretty good, where like it was obviously throughout the night here in the States, but as soon as the stream was down, they put it up again so people could watch again. It was just like, it felt like an actual event that someone was doing coverage of rather than like somebody hacked stuff together with cameras or whatever the other ones feel like. It was good. And I think, it's a good starting point to build on and actually create a real presentation because I feel like they had the building blocks in place for this one.
Ced, what do you got?
I would agree with Steven. There were a couple things that I really liked about it, a couple that I didn't dislike, a couple that I disliked about it. Excuse me. I mean, first of all, like I loved the tournament center that they kicked back to a lot. It's just nice for recaps. Just if there's people that you care about, and if they get mentioned in there, that's really cool. The deck tech setup was really cool. Outside of BDM, putting cards up to the camera like this so that you could barely see them, because what's the point? It just didn't make any sense. But I know
Celestial Purge, Cedric.
BDM's used to doing that from old coverage, so he needs to stop. He needs to stop doing that in the future, because it's literally just like you're just going like this, and they can't see the card. So what's the point of doing it? I thought Rich Hagon, I thought he was really good in the tournament center. His coverage we can get to in a minute, but as far as him in the tournament center, he's like meant for the tournament center, just because like he's very knowledgeable on like the players and their accomplishments and where they're from and what they're trying to accomplish and how many points they need to get to a certain level and that sort of thing. So I mean, I think like that's ideal for him. Him commentating on like turn 4 of game 4 of the Semi Pro Tour, not a very good idea.
Yes.
But I think like the highlight of the entire thing for me was Zach Hill in the booth on day 1 of live coverage, and pretty much Zach Hill in general. I felt was, if someone did a fantastic job, I felt it was him. Mostly because he has experience playing on the Pro Tour, so he knows from a player's perspective what to expect, what you're trying to accomplish, that sort of thing. And I think that's the biggest missing factor in most of the coverage that's done nowadays, is that they have 2 people who play Magic but aren't especially good at Magic, so they don't really know what angles to come from, and they don't know what the cards are, what they do. And then when you have Zach on there, I thought his analysis of like game states were really, really good. So overall, I thought it was a success. Obviously, anything can be improved upon, but I was pretty happy with it.
Jarvis, do you have any idea what was going on in the coverage? Like, did they have the coverage going into the players' lounge?
They did.
Okay.
It was fine, except like the cards were basically unreadable on the TV they had, which kind of was terrible. Like,
yeah.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
for those of you who don't know, the feature match area is cordoned off, so no one can get close up to seeing it essentially.
Yeah, I mean, if I had one sort of broad umbrella complaint from certainly like the earlier portions of the PT, like day 1, day 2, when you're doing coverage of limited games especially, I feel like I have more knowledge than like the average person viewing the Pro Tour about like what cards do, and maybe that's off base, but I have a fairly good knowledge of certainly the first 2 sets. But like when they're covering limited games, I have no idea what's going on, because if you can't clearly see the cards and they're not bringing them all up, like
I was, throughout the weekend, I was like holding control and mouse wheeling over the cards on the coverage, and it just would not bring up what the card was. Just did not work. Just as I am moto, guys. But I think that's got to be the next thing. Got to get some way that people can actually tell what the cards on the table are. I think
right.
that would really,
they had like a window, like a bring up one card window, and when
but
but you
like if it was a list of the cards on the table and you could like mouse over the different names to see different ones.
Yeah, I think something needs to happen there. I'm not totally sure what it is, but something needs to happen there, I think. But overall, I thought it was pretty good, and that's a significant step up from the last PT coverage, I think, in my opinion at least. So overall, thumbs up. Like, I don't know. I saw some comments, like I know Bing said thing on Twitter. He was like, "I have been glued to the coverage for 97 hours straight," and like I'm pooping in a sock and peeing in a bottle and doing like WoW cliches and stuff. And like I didn't feel like it was that good, but I think it was all right. So yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I don't watch coverage that much, and a lot of people know that I've been very outspoken about coverage. But overall, I mean, I didn't want to A, mute the volume, and B, I wasn't like, there's no way I'm watching this. I'd literally rather do anything else. So, I mean, I was happy.
Yeah.
And I'm a tough crowd.
Sure.
Next, Albie.
Shall we do the actual top 8 decks? Like, shall we talk about the actual Magic that was played?
Instructed.
Yeah, I mean,
I have one like closing point I want to make about the coverage.
Sure.
I think it's sort of important. A lot of the improvements we saw in the coverage for this Pro Tour, I feel, were in the transitions and the in-between matches time. Like they're more able to get the cameras on the next match. They have a group to throw it back to between games and everything. I think that there were very, very few improvements on when you're watching the match, what's being displayed to you. And I think that there is a lot of improving still that needs to be done there. So that was the one thing that sort of left me hanging. Like they've got all this stuff going on, but they still can't update the life totals when somebody does an attack like quickly. You're still like 2 turns later. The life totals are from
Yeah,
2 turns ago. Like really, guys?
there were a couple spots.
I think that they're
Sorry. I just wanted to mention that, like, I know even in the top 8 there were a couple spots where they would, like, switch games, and then, like, 5 minutes later they'd be like, oh, these life totals we have are completely inaccurate. Like, instead of, like, 15 to 13, it's, like, 28 to 7. And you're like, oh, well, that's a little different. So yeah, that stood out a lot for me.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with you, Steven. It was really nice that like basically what you're saying is like there wasn't any dead air, which is like a huge problem in the Star City ones. Is because like the two people in the booth will be like, so what do you want to talk about now? Is the next roundup yet? And then they don't have anything to talk about. Whereas yeah, like they had things to kick it back to. They had deck checks. Rich Hancock could talk about Magic for literally days. So he's like the perfect person to kick it back to because he can just go on and on. So I thought like the no dead air was really, really good, but they definitely need to improve like the overhead view so that people can see the cards. The life total thing, I feel like that's inexcusable personally, but like I said, tough crowd. So
Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to talk about before we talk about like the actual top 8 decks, and we will talk about the top 8 decks, but and this is directed mostly at Jarvis, but like, do you think the top 8 gave a fair representation of what actually showed up to this PT? Like, I know they did a bunch of deck techs, like they talked a couple times about this like Predator Ooze mono green deck that like ate 1 and 1, but he just
Funny
like,
story about that.
but he
I
just
actually lost to that guy.
Sure, but he just like punted it out the window and
Um,
limited or something. Like he didn't get there. But like, do you think that the top 8 was a good overall representation of what was going on?
I do think so. On the other hand, like, so here's the thing. Nile was definitely the most played deck at that PT, which is not surprising because it's a pretty obvious deck and, like, it just has all of the best cards. The real problem is, like, the mana in that deck is terrible. Like, and I definitely lost plenty of matches due to having mana problems, which is, like, the most frustrating part about most block formats.
Right.
Um, Another point that might not be immediately obvious is that the Miracle deck actually had a terrible like Swiss percentage. It was like 42% match win percentage,
Yeah.
except Alex Haynes 6-0'd limited, which is kind of a big deal for any like hybrid event.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about like the specifics of what the Miracle deck does and doesn't do. But I just wanted to know if like you felt like it was a representative of the overall
Yeah,
thing. Like,
it was pretty representative.
I think the only thing I would say may have slipped by people if they didn't like watch all the coverage was I think there were a lot more Tiny Idiots decks in the tournament to begin with than showed up in the top 8. Like there's
You mean
only
like some white weenie?
well, I mean like red white and like green
There
white.
was those were severely underrepresented, actually. Like
Really? Like
I
on
think
day 1 or day 2? I know they
I
were
think just overall,
underrepresented on day 2.
overall, there just weren't that many of
Okay.
them, period.
All right, fair enough.
I feel like everyone kind of got the memo on red white that like it was the deck to beat. If you wanted to beat it, it wasn't that difficult to beat, and so a lot of people jumped off the ship.
Yeah. That seems fair. I felt like again, not an expert, but my general feeling of the format was that you had sort of a very traditional Magic / block metagame where you had like the aggro deck, which was embodied by like red white mostly, but like some tiny green white idiots, and then you could beat the aggro deck by being like the mid range deck, which is where a bunch of people ended up with Naya. Like you just had a bunch of cards that were really good against the aggro deck, and like you played sort of mid rangey stuff and just pooped on them. And then there were a couple control decks which beat the mid-range deck, but got brutally murdered by the aggro decks. which was like where the Miracles deck ended up coming from, and then there were some other lists. If you like look through the coverage, there were like some Think Twice control decks. I think like Reed was on some sort of Terminus deck, and like there were some other ones. And sometimes we go in the wind tunnel.
Am I in the wind tunnel?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Okay, it's done now.
We gotta get you
Yay,
a
it's
USB
over.
keyboard or something, Cedric.
Yeah.
Look, I'll fix it. Leave me alone. I'm poor.
Yeah, like do you think that's accurate? The one thing I wanted to talk about just about the Miracles deck specifically before we get into like how the actual top 8 deck played out. But yeah, like the thing Jarvis brought up, my understanding is that it did not actually do fantastically well. In like overall match win percentage in the Swiss, like I think all the Canadians were on it, and like 3-2 was in fact the best I think that came out of day one, or maybe Hain 2-3'd. It was one of those two.
Haynes started that tournament 1-3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't like they just they won everything. Like there were some comments about them having like broken it, and I don't think that's at all like reasonable. I don't think you can look at the results that deck posted and be like, well, they broke it. It's like, well, I mean, I think it was fine. I don't want to like poop on it or whatever, but I don't think you can say that you broke it.
Oh, I mean, that deck's not breaking it. I don't think any deck. I don't think there's any breaking of the format to be done. Just with like how the cards are now, in my opinion, I think the closest you can get to breaking it is like Sam Black's deck if no one's prepared for it. But I mean, the Miracle deck is definitely not breaking it. Like I know that Adam Yurchik played the deck. They call him the honorary Canadian, and he started at least 1-2 or 1-3. And some people were like, a lot of people respect Adam's opinion on deck selection. And people were like, what deck are you playing? He's like, blue-white, Miracle deck or whatever. And they're like, how was it? He's like, terrible, absolutely awful. And I mean, Adam doesn't normally feel that way. When Adam like has a concrete opinion about a deck, I definitely trust what his opinion is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Miracle deck is like fine or whatever. Like, if you're running good in a tournament,
oh baby,
that's the deck you want to have in your hands. Like, that's the nightmare deck if you're like running pretty hot and like things are breaking your way. Which on day 2 and day 3, it seems like things were breaking Haynes' way. Not to say he's a bad player or anything, but when you're running good, and that's a hell of a deck to run well with.
Yeah, your chick told me it was the worst deck he had ever played. So that is his opinion on it, I guess.
So
I read actually I was reading a thread and someone was like, so does anyone have a list for like a Miracles deck for Block Constructor? And I was like, what? And somebody threw out 60 cards and I was like, who is this guy who's just like throwing, what is this thing on my screen, these 60 cards for a Miracle deck? And then 5 minutes later I discovered that it was a deck list from the top 8 of the Pro Tour. And then I watched it win.
Yeah.
And I'm still a little confused. I don't think that it is okay. I think it's just a terrible, terrible Magic deck. I think Haynes is really good at playing Magic, so I can still say positive things about him.
But not positive things about the cardboard.
Well, we can. I want to talk about the Miracle deck in general, but before we do that, I just want to like touch briefly on what all the decks in the top 8 were. Like we'll probably link to this sort of stuff when the podcast goes up and when we post it places. But the top 8 was 3 Naya decks, 2 Pants Monster decks, which is like the Sam Black, Star City Black team, like Invisible Stalker, Geist of Saint Traft, Increasing Savagery decks. So those 5 of those, and then there was 1 Reanimator deck, 1 Green-White Aggro deck, and 1 Blue-White Miracles deck. So that was the top 8. Touching on the Miracles deck first and foremost, because I think it's the one that people find most interesting, and like it obviously did well. It won the Pro Tour. It has the chips, as it were. When I first looked at the Miracle deck, my first reaction was like instantaneous hatred. Like there's not really a sure way to get me to hate a Magic deck than to like just post a list, and when you look at it, you're like, that looks incredibly high variance. When you run well, you will never lose, and when you like run mediocre, you will get destroyed by everything.
What do you mean you'll never lose when you run well? What are you talking about? Have you read the deck list?
I
What if
mean,
somebody like has a deck
you just
with
take
a card in it?
you just take 5 turns in a row from turn 2 to turn 6, and then they're dead. Like, I don't think they're...
Oh, we're talking really well.
Yeah, like when you
I
nut draw
don't think that
people,
they're
they
dead when you.
die.
I don't think that you're killing them at that point, though. I think then you have 5 lands.
Okay, well,
And you're
regardless,
still dead to Invisible Stalker.
there were actually some points I wanted to make following up on that. I don't think it actually played out like that at all. Like, though it actually sort of sold me on itself as being a legitimate Magic the Gathering deck, like, as the top 8 went on. I think instead of hoping to nut draw people, which is like what I first saw, I think basically they're like a traditional blue-white deck, and then if the game goes long enough, they will eventually just draw something stupid and kill you with it. Like, is basically what they're relying on. Is like, if they can live for 6 or 7 turns, like, they're just gonna flip something and you're gonna die. And that I'm a lot more okay with, like a deck that just has a really powerful late game and hopes to survive the early game. With that being said, I don't think it's like an unstoppable monster or anything, but I'm at least like just okay with it as a general deck that exists. And yeah, I was actually fairly favorably impressed by the pilot. Like, I thought he played really, really well from what I could see while watching the coverage, and like I was really happy about that. I thought like all of his decisions were reasonable, and like the times he stopped to go in the tank were reasonable too, and like I was just pretty impressed overall by the way it performed.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, I think in terms of just broad statistics, we were expecting it to die to the Pants Monster deck in both round 1 and 3, and like I think his opponents had to run pretty bad to not kill him. And like,
I mean, run bad, or keep bad hands like John did.
yeah, like there were a bunch of things that occurred, but like I don't think he's winning that top 8 every time because his deck is absurd and no one else was, basically, is what I want to say. And like I think the coverage kind of went all crazy, where they were like, he's done it! They've killed the format, Goliath is dead! And it's like, no, I don't think that's actually what happened. Like, actually it was just a dude entered an 8-man, and like his opponents made some questionable decisions, and like he made some good decisions, and he got
Just
there.
another Moto 8 man.
Yeah,
guy
like,
paid his 6 tickets, walked away with 40 grand. It's a really
yeah,
exclusive 8-man tournament.
that's correct.
Yeah.
I want to point out that his deck, like, you're saying that it has this insane late game and it just wins. It was not even in this block top 8. It was not the deck with the best late game. There's a deck there that makes 400,000/400,000 haste monsters. Like,
That's true. That's a terrible combo deck.
it's like
I don't understand like what the point you're making is. Like,
Well,
if
he's
you're
saying that the Angels of Glory Rise deck, if you're going to play a late game deck, the Angel of Glory's Rise deck is better than the Miracle deck. If you're wanting to play like a control deck that's just like, I need to make it past turn 5. Like, his opinion is that the Angel of Glory's Rise deck is better because, like, when it makes it to the late game, you just die.
okay.
Whereas with, like,
that was pretty much
I mean,
my opinion.
you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's pretty much correct. Like, if we're talking about the deck being good because it gets the late game and then goes high on you, and this is the deck that's going high on the format, I don't think so. I think, like, you tap out for your 5 4/4s, and then I gain infinite life and attack you.
Okay.
And probably I win.
I mean, I think there are more complexities to the matchup than just being like who wins on turn 1,000,000, but like, sure. I mean, that's fine. Like, I think they're vulnerable to different things.
That'd be an interesting matchup to see, honestly.
I think it'd be fairly interesting, actually, to be honest. But I mean, I know that we're talking strictly about like the Miracle deck at this point, and I mean, I think that deck is fine. Like I said earlier, if you're running good, that deck is really dangerous. If you're running bad, then you're not going to Miracle anything, and you're going to embarrass yourself, and you're like, why did I come to this tournament with this deck? I'm not doing anything. I'm paying full price for all these cards, and this is just terrible, or whatever. But I think the thing that I like, the thing I like from it, like from a troll aspect, which is, at the end of the day is the most important, is that I'm trying to imagine what happened with Hayne when, like, the first time you miracle the guy. And he's like, all right. You know, he gets, like, mad or whatever and was like, you know, stupid mechanic. Fine. He finally accepts it. He moves on. Then the next turn, he gets miracled again. And he's like, what the hell, dude? And then it happens, like, 3 turns later. And then 4 turns later. He's like, oh, I get it. I get it. And then it's just like, I just have to hope that you don't draw, like, that miracle on that turn to, like, win. And then it, like, makes your opponent start thinking about, like, all these things that he can't control. And then, you know, like, I feel like that's kind of how Hayne gets an advantage. Because, like, let's say, like, Hayne miracles a guy, like, 4 times in game 1. Now that guy's going to be like, ugh, well, I have to hope he doesn't miracle in treat, or can I play another guy and hope he doesn't miracle Terminus, or can I play in a Devastation Tide? Like, then there's, like, all these complex decisions that, like, his opponent has to make, and it's just like, dude, I'm just drawing a card, and, like, something might happen. Something might not happen. And, like, things like that, which is why I think Miracle's a dumb mechanic, is completely out of your control as a player for the most part. Like, you can set up your miracles and think twice or thought scour, whatever, but you don't know which one you're going to draw. And then it makes, like, your opponent make these decisions where he's like, I guess I'm going to try to play around this to the best of my ability, even though you have no control and you can't set it up. So it's a strange deck. And I don't even know how good of a deck it is.
Yeah.
People are probably playing terribly against it, that's my guess. Because there is... I mean, it's a spot where you don't even really need to care what's in your opponent's hand. Like, it becomes just a matter of their range is a proportion of different cards which could be on top of their deck, and you play around those, and the percentages are public knowledge to you. So I think if people adjusted to that and played with that knowledge, they would probably play better than against a normal sort of deck where you care more about what's in your opponent's hand. I don't know. I saw lots of people, like, committing a ton of stuff to the board when he was on 5 mana, like...
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple real things they can have in their hand.
Yeah,
well,
so
Steve,
definitely
I
6
totally agree with
cast
you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you're saying, but, like, what makes it interesting is, like, when you're playing in a Pro Tour, and you're playing against, like, for a lot of people, this is their first time playing against Miracle and Constructed, so they don't really know how to play against it. Like, you know, they might devote their attention to, like you said, like, the guy has 5 lands in play, and you could just go, like, 6 land Terminus, what are you doing? You know, but they've got, like, all this attention on, like, what if he has Entreat? What if he has Devastation Tide? You know, like, what if he has this card? What if he has that card? What if he flips that card over? And then, you know, like, it's kind of the point you brought up. It's kind of the point that you brought up last week, and, like, how your short-term memory can only focus on so many things. They just start putting all these variables in their head that they don't need to put in their head, but they don't know any better because, like, they're playing against, like, a deck where they have no idea what's in the guy's deck outside of the top 8, so they're just like, God, I don't know what to play around. Like, does this maniac have a mountain and a bonfire of the damned in his hand? Like, what does this guy have in his deck? I have no clue what to do. You know, and, like, that's like a huge advantage for Hayne and the guys that played those decks, because he's just like, dude, I'm just sitting here. I'm not doing anything, and you are just overthinking everything, which I have done a bunch in a tournament. And, like, that kind of, like, small edge might be the reason that he made top 8, you know, because he's playing against, like, some guy round 13 who's just like, dude, I heard about this guy playing some Miracle deck, and I'm paired against him, and I don't know what he's got, so I'm just going to try and play around a bunch of stuff. And then he's, like, juking himself out, and he's playing around all these cards he's got no business playing around, and Hayne's like, oh, you're not going to commit any guys to the board? Okay, Tamio, tap your guy, you're stupid. Like, there's just all these things that can happen. And it's just like, what are you doing? And Hayne just sits there and he's like, dude, I'm just casting thing twice, man. I'm not doing anything else. You know, so that's why I think the deck is, like, interesting. But, I mean, to your point, once people start, like, playtesting against the deck or become familiar with, like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to play around Terminus if he has 5 lands or if he has 3 lands or this, then the deck probably gets way worse, but that's what happens to a lot of decks.
That's why a lot of people like to go low or high at a tournament which is going to be like an untested constructive format, because a lot of people, I think, would have ended up with a mid-rangey deck playing against that and just made terrible, terrible, terrible life decisions.
Yeah, can we just like very briefly paint a picture of what I think that deck like murders the Naya like mid-range decks, gets killed by anything that's aggressive like at all most of the time, and then probably also loses to other control decks as well. Do you think that's like that's my guess?
I'm gonna kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
I think actually Naya is like probably so. Here's the thing about the Naya deck: it's never gonna beat Entreat the Angels for any amount, essentially.
Okay.
Josh Cho did, but that's because he had 2 Zealous conscripts,
Right.
Which is very, very unlikely. But the other thing is, sometimes their deck just doesn't draw a Wrath of God, and then they die to a 5-mana 12/12. You're in the wind tunnel again, bro.
What do you want me to do?
Derek, you gotta stop typing. It's the typing that's turning it on.
Oh, okay, I won't type ever again, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
For you, Joe Norbs, I will not type.
So 5-mana 12/12s mean that you only have to commit like 2 guys versus a Terminus to actually have to kill them. And I think that actually borne out in a lot of the games that Cho actually played versus the guy. And like the guy only beat him 3-2, which means I feel like it's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, he won it, like, I think every single match, basically, in that top 8 went to 5 games, which is, like, ridiculously good for the coverage. Like, could anything better have happened? No.
Yeah,
I don't
no
think
way.
so.
That's so ideal.
But yeah, I think every match was really close for the Miracles deck. Like, we can go over the matches. I don't want to get too deep in the matches, because I think we can go over the matches a little bit in a separate segment.
I mean, we don't have to go over the matches that much, just because, like, coverage did it.
Yeah,
But
okay.
There was one thing I did. The one thing that you brought up about like them making the coverage making a big deal out of like Miracle beating Sam Blackstack twice and Miracle is the thing or whatever. Like, you want to talk about it going 5 games being an ideal situation? Like, Miracle is like one of the most criticized mechanics, like on a pro level and just like on a casual level. So for like that Miracle deck to do very, very well is extremely good for like R&D and Hasbro and like your Johnny, who just like likes playing Magic and he thinks this is cool. Look at this card I drew. Like, that's the best case situation by far. Like having a deck with 16 Miracles win the tournament, and then they can be like, see, we told you this mechanic is fine and balanced and lickety blah blue, when like that's not true or whatever. But that's if you want to bring up a best case scenario, like 5 game Miracle is 1, 5 games is 1 game.
Okay. You have things to say, Steven? You want to go crazy? Say the stuff?
We never saw the Bonfire of the Damned off the top. There are so many spots where the Bonfire of the Damned off the top just ended the game in that matchup, but yeah, I don't know. That wasn't really in response to what Cedric said or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the lists.
You're right about that. There were a lot of situations where that happened, and I have a lot of friends who played in the Pro Tour that were just like, my opponent was dead next turn, and then he drew Bonfire, where like, if he had Bonfire in his hand, it wouldn't have done anything, and he drew Bonfire, killed all my stuff, and then I died, and it's like, dumb, or whatever. So, it definitely happened during the tournament, even though we didn't watch it happen in the top 8. It happened a fair amount. I know it happened to my friend Stephen Berkowitz at least twice, and just, it's frustrating.
Yeah, so if you're going to talk about this deck breaking a format or even just being a good deck, I think you have to consider that this is a tournament it was taken to where there were a ton of people who had never played against it before, had not built their decks with it in mind at all, and then it played poorly. Yeah, when you're talking about how it fits into and you're talking about it beats this deck, it loses to this deck, it loses to this deck, I think that if you put the Miracle deck in the meta, which the deck was you're looking at didn't do, they don't have the sideboard plan for the Miracle deck because they think it's awful. But if all of a sudden 20% of the meta is Miracle decks, I think most of the decks beat it comfortably just by adding a few sideboard cards, going up to 4 Bonfire of the Damned, getting the Dissipates, like maybe 2 of the main deck and 2 of the board. Depending on the list, I think there are going to be ways to beat it fairly comfortably, whoever you are.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think
What's your next topic?
Okay. I mean, I think, like, in defense of the Miracle deck, I think that is part and parcel of... Holy shit. Jesus. Sorry. It's, like, the wind tunnel is just overpowering. But, like, I think that's part and parcel of building a deck for the Pro Tour. Like, if you build a Crazy Conley Woods deck, you get to reap the benefit of being a Crazy Conley Woods deck. Like, you can't really separate that out and be like, it's not fair that you did that. Like, it is fair that they did that, because that's the thing you get to do at a Pro Tour. You're not building a deck for, like, the next 2 months. You're building a deck for a Pro Tour. So, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you're building a deck for one tournament. It doesn't matter if your deck sucks after that tournament. Thanks for the $40,000. Thanks for the pro points.
The deck also sucked during the tournament, Cedric.
What's that?
Okay. The deck also sucked during the tournament, but yes.
That's true. No, that's true.
Doesn't matter how it does after.
I mean, that's a much more legitimate concern.
Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to talk about just a few... I don't think we need to talk about each individual deck in the top 8. Like, I don't think anything else... Was there anything else that was fascinating other than Miracles? I think everything else is pretty standard.
Can I make fun of the green and white deck?
Yeah, okay, sure. Let's do it.
Thank you. It's Troll Hour over here. So, I looked at this... So, when I looked at the top 8 deck list, you know, I saw, like, a bunch of Nia decks. You know, I saw Haynes' deck and had, like, the same reaction that most people had that are like, holy crap! So many miracles! That's so cool! You know? And then I saw, you know, Sam's deck or whatever, and, you know, we saw that in coverage quite a bit because the big pros were playing it. And then I saw this green and white deck. And I was just blown away how bad the deck was. Because I don't know in what world you, like, build your deck and you're just, like, feeling it down and you're just like, all right, this is exactly how I want it. Like, 3 Avacyn's Pilgrim, where that's, like, either a 4 or a card. And then you're like...
throw the deck list out of the window.
And then you, like, have, like, Fiend Hunter, which is, like, one of the best removal spells in the format, and you're like, you know what? 3 is ideal, even though it's, like, the only way I can kill a guy. And then you have Restoration Angel. And, like, with Restoration Angel, you probably have a reason that you're playing it, other than it just being, like, a very powerful card, period. And this guy only has 2. And you're like, all right, I guess. Only 2 is fine. But then I go over to this sideboard, where I'm... And this is where I'm fully blown away. And this is only because, like, I play mostly white aggressive decks when I play Constructed Magic, so, like, I really know how I want a white aggressive deck built, like this one. And I think everyone knew going into the tournament that, like, Wolfir Silverheart is a very good card. And in order to do well in this Pro Tour, you should either be playing it or ignoring it or, like, have a way to deal with it. Not only does this guy not have Wolfir Silverheart in his main deck, but is there an exact situation where you want to bring it in? And if you do want to bring it in, you just want 2? What is going on here?
Well, what is
going on?
What if you want a 2/4 lifelink instead of the third one? Had you considered that?
Also, yeah. Oh, yeah, I didn't even want to bring that up. I was willing to ignore that as a joke. The Seraph of Dawn. But then the other thing that is mind-blowing is, like, how do you have 2 Wolfir Silverhearts in your sideboard, but you have 2 Druid's Familiar in your main deck? How is that acceptable? That Druid's Familiar is better than Wolfir Silverheart.
He's only playing.
It was just, I looked at that deck list, I just burst into laughter. And, like, how bad it is, and, like, hey, I mean, this guy's having the weekend of his life. He made top 8 of the PT. I'm happy for him. But don't copy that deck, because you are going to be disappointed, and you're going to be scratching your head on the numbers and why they're there. So, my trolling is over.
All right.
You may continue your show.
I wanted to bring up a few quick points about the matches we did see, mostly on the coverage, because, again, I wasn't there. The Finkel the Finkel v Hayne match in round 1, I felt like it sort of went the way I was expecting it to up to game 3, and then games 4 and 5, I felt like again, totally uneducated opinion, but it felt like Finkel just kept hands he had absolutely no business keeping and then got completely run over. Did anyone else feel like that? Like I felt like they must have tested the matchup and figured that like 4 lands Garrick was a keep or something, and then they played at the game and were like, oh, this doesn't work at all. We get murdered. And then it happened again in game 5. Like, I don't know. Like, I seriously, that's what it felt like to me.
I mean, game 5 I wasn't awake for the coverage. I Seattle time. I had to read it, but like game 5, he just didn't do anything, and I was like, what's going on? I'm confused. And then he just died, and I was just like, what on earth? Like, I don't know if that deck just like mulligans real bad, or like John doesn't like mulliganing, and it's like. It's easy to be like, well, you guys aren't John Finkel. What the hell do you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I know that he died and didn't cast any spells, so I feel like he had to have done something wrong. It was very strange. Game 4 is what it is. I don't have a very good recollection of that game, but Game 5, I know that when I read the coverage, I was like, holy crap, he's just, like, not doing anything.
I mean, yeah, like you could see his hand. Like I rewatched the coverage. I didn't watch it live, but I rewatched it, and his hand was like silver heart. It was like 2 silver hearts and a Garruk and 4 lands or something. It was like literally not a single thing that does anything before turn 4. And game 4 was just the exact same thing. And like I don't know. I mean, I understand that deck's mana looks a little bit shifty, and it probably doesn't do super well in the mall. But I felt like the finals played out a lot more like how I would have guessed it should have played. And then like he kind of ran a little bad, and some things happened that we can get to when we get there. But like I don't know. It felt like the approach was odd in the last 2 games for Finkel. Does anyone like strongly disagree? Because I'd really like to hear the other side. Because I don't profess to expertise here at all.
The other side. Well, Adam, if you already have a Planeswalker and 2 8/8s in your hand,
I don't know. Like I don't want to make.
No, I don't think there's another side.
I don't want to make the case sound like I totally know 100% how you should play the matchup, because I don't. But it seemed weird to me. That's all I wanted to bring up.
I mean, you can convince yourself when you look at that hand that, I have X amount of lands left in my deck. If I draw 1 early card, if I draw a Pilgrim, if I draw a Stalker or something, if I draw an Abundant Growth, then
I'm not a Stalker.
Well, I mean, I don't know what lands he kept. Like, I'm willing to assume he had blue mana, but you can convince yourself of, I have 4 lands, I have these 3 higher end spells, so I draw something to fill in during that time, then, this will be a different game, it'll be easier to win, that sort of thing. I do get to draw a card every turn. Whatever, you can convince yourself to keep that hand. I mean, obviously the way it played out, it looks bad, and that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But I can see. I'm not gonna say that I can see myself keeping the hand. I can see the point of view of someone convincing themselves to keep that hand, and then losing, and then just being like, "Why did I keep that hand? That was stupid." So.
I don't know. Like, I just felt like they went to testing, and they were like my thought was, I don't see how he's keeping his hand, so they must have played the matchup and determined that if you stick a Garruk, you win. Like, that was my thinking. And then it was just like he stuck Garruk and still got obliterated, and I was like, that doesn't seem like, I don't know. He made some wolves, and the other guy was like, don't care. And, yeah, like...
Angel, shut up.
Yeah, I don't know, it was weird. The other thing I wanted to touch on in the Finkel match really quick was the 65 card present, which came up in like game 5, I think, where like Hayne made a mistake sideboarding, and I understand that like things like that happen.
Can you see me rubbing my hands together?
Yes, I could see that.
I'm still doing it.
That is.
I'm gonna let you 3 go first.
Yeah, like I don't want to go off. Like, it wasn't. You can't. Or I think you shouldn't just be like, well, that was really stupid. Like, obviously, it wasn't like he thought about it. He was like, I should present 65. Like, clearly, he just, like, he made it an honest mistake, and that's fine. And then he called the judge on himself, which is what you're supposed to do. And like the judge came and they delivered a penalty that like maybe should not have been like they super downgraded the penalty. And there's a long and storied history of doing that in PT top eights. And like I understand why there is. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand what happened. But like the thing I really wanted to mention was that the coverage was going bonkers about how John Finkel was like, we'll just let him take 5 cards out because John Finkel is like a wonderful person and he poops solid gold. And like I don't disagree with that. I don't know John Finkel, and like saying letting him take 5 out is like really nice, but I just wanted to say there is 100% zero chance John Finkel should ever have any impact on that decision ever. Like John Finkel is a player in the Pro Tour, and like there are judges for this exact purpose, and it's not like the guy can present 65 and you're like, oh well, that's John Finkel. What do you think, John? What should the penalty be? Like, please do not do that in the top 8 of a Pro Tour. Like that is retarded, and it makes your entire tournament look like a joke. So like, don't even just don't do that. That's all.
Just don't.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Jarvis or Steven, by all means. Whoever would like to begin.
Jarvis.
Yeah, Jarvis, give us the things.
So it seems really weird that they would downgrade the penalty that much, because like this is like the perfect form to show that if you make a mistake at the Pro Tour, you get punished. He clearly did not get punished in the way most people do when they present a deck that's not of the correct size. And also, like, I find it really weird that he just wouldn't count his sideboard before presenting. That's like pretty standard procedure for anyone at that level to do so. Or even like in a PTQ, you should do that.
Well, I mean, yeah. Like I said, he probably didn't mean to present 65, so I don't think we need to like go into arguments about what he should or should not have done. I'm sure if you ask him like, should you have presented 65, he will be like, yes, I should have counted my board. So
Yeah.
The clever like mental game thing. Make John Finkel feel generous, and then he'll just keep the 4-line Garrett.
So Hayne tricked him.
Yeah, clever. I think what Jarvis was saying about like counting your sideboard before you present is important. A lot of people, Alexander Hayne, I got the impression was fairly newish to Magic, and a lot of people do not have the subconscious system set up. We were talking about this last week with regards to miracling cards, because that's a spot where it's changed. You now need a subconscious thing, which is like, this is how I draw a card instead of this. Also, people don't do that. So just like getting that into your game, if you're going to PTQs, I think that's a really good idea. As far as the actual judging decision, I mean, I was sort of surprised they didn't go to the instant replay. Like, they could have maybe worked out where the 5 cards were and just taken those out of the deck somehow, replaying it. But otherwise, I think I wasn't too surprised by their ruling, given how top 8 rulings work.
It doesn't seem like he's actually that new, because if you look at his profile, it says that this is his 4th Pro Tour, and he has a GP top 8. So, like,
Okay.
I don't know. I guess it was probably just a brain fart to just not go through his normal procedure of checking everything.
Yeah,
that's why you have a normal procedure, and well, that's important to have one. Yeah.
Well, he might be new if he's only been playing for like 4 or 5 years, but I certainly don't think he just started like 3 months ago or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, Magic. I love Magic. Such a great game. So, what they are doing now? Let me take you back circa 2002.
Is this Billy Moreno? I hope this is Billy Moreno.
No, this is not Billy Moreno.
2002.
Actually, this is. I'm sorry. This is 02. This is Odyssey Block Constructed.
Okay.
This is me in Grand Prix Cleveland when I'm 16.
My hair looks like this.
What's that?
Right now. This is what my hair looks like at this time.
Okay, you look like that in 02? Yeah, you look perfect. So, 02. Format is Blue-Green Madness, Mono Black Control. There are Braids decks. There are other decks.
Oh god, it won't go away.
In that tournament, if you forgot to sacrifice with your own Braids, not only did you get a game loss, you got thrown in the back of a police car. You were beaten with a nightstick, and you were asked to never come back to the tournament hall ever again. Okay? So the penalties in the, and I want to say early days, but it's not early to me, it's just when I was during my adolescence, were a lot harsher than they are now. That being said, this once again sets a terrible precedent for future tournaments. Because now, what if someone does this in the top 8 of a Grand Prix? They present their deck, top 8. They're nervous, like Hayne probably was nervous against. Like Hayne was nervous against Finkel. What if they present their deck in the top 8 of a Grand Prix, and they go, oh, you have 65 cards. That's a game loss. And then the guy's like, but I just watched the last Pro Tour, and Alexander Hayden did that, and you guys just fixed it, and you didn't get a game loss, and then that's it. So then what are they going to do? And so now what they're doing is they're drawing like this very, very like gray line of like all these things that can possibly happen, and it's just like, it's just bad because that's why the rules are in place. Like, and I fully understand that for this particular tournament, there were so many people watching at that point in time. Do you guys have any idea of the number of people that were watching?
I don't really know off the top of my head. It was like 10 to 20K, I think.
Okay, so there's like a bunch of people watching at home. This is a big tournament. This is a big deal. That sort of thing. So they don't want like their people that are starting to play the game, their future gamers, their future people they want on the Pro Tour, that sort of thing, to be like, if you make this sort of mistake, it's a big deal. They don't want to drive people away from the game. So, I fully understand why they downgraded it, and for me, and I told this to some other people, like when I was in college and I was playing a bunch and that sort of thing, like if that happened to me in a tournament, I would have just pounced and been like, no, dude, you are cold as ice right now for presenting your deck 65 cards. Like, and I would have just argued with the judge, and I would have gotten that and like a bunch of things. But like now, because I'm 26 and I don't care about Magic as much as I used to, I would be like, dude, like if they would like consult me, I'd be like, just let him play. Like, it was obviously accidental. He's not boarding up to 65 on purpose, like all of that stuff. But my overarching point is that it just sets a very, very bad precedent. And I know that you can say it's the head judge's discretion and that sort of thing, but if this happens, like, where are we drawing the line? Like, if it happens in a PTQ top 8, like, you guys are playing to get on the Pro Tour, and it gets kind of cutthroat in top 8s about, like, this guy made a mistake, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be like, well, I mean, Finkel, Hayne match, Hayne got to fix it, so we fix it, or, like, what is going on? Like, it's going to get blurry, just like the free invite thing. Just like extending people invites to Pro Tours now when they got close is going to get blurry. That's all it is. And that part of it I don't like, because that's why we have rules in place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too crazy about, like, downgrade or not downgrade, because I suspect that's just going to come down to, like, the actual lettering of the rules and it being discretionary a lot of the time. I just wanted to make really clear that John Finkel should not be the person at whose discretion it is. It should not be like John Finkel is like, okay, we can play, and then they play. Like John Finkel can obviously say whatever he wants, but he should not have any actual power within the rules, was my greater overall point there.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, they had, from what I heard, they had already made their ruling, and they were talking to John about, like, when they came up to John, they explained that, we are not going to give him a game loss, and then John was like, well, I don't want him to get a game loss,
right,
or something along those lines, like, I just want to play,
right,
and that sort of thing. But, like, there shouldn't even be, like, some sort of consultation. You're the judge. You just walk over and be like, okay, ruling. Here's what's happening. And move on. But, you can get both sides of the stories about what happened with, like, deck presentation, who noticed, who called the judge, that sort of thing. But it's just, like, ruling, right to appeal. But I know that the head judge was there. And then, that's it. That's the end of it. That's it. It's over. Am I glad that they let him play out Game 5? Like, of course I am, because, like, that would be shitty, but it depends on, where you're at in your life and that sort of thing. If this is some guy who is like imagine if this is Guillaume Matignon, like, playing for Player of the Year last year. And, like, he needs to make the finals, and this is the semis, and it's Game 5, and he's, like, in a bad matchup. And it's like, okay, you prevented 65 cards. It's like, is Guillaume just going to be like, that's fine, or is he going to throw, a shit fit, or what's going to happen? And it should just be cut and dry. There should stop being so many gray areas, is my point.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a more general point about Magic rulings in general. And, like, we're probably going to come back to this when we touch on another ruling, if we have time to get around to that ruling. But for now, I just want to, like, fairly quickly recap the top 8. Is there anything fascinating that anyone thought happened in the JCHO match? The only thing that I thought was really fascinating, or, like, really stood out to me, was I felt like his play, JCHO's that is, was a little bit suspect in Game 5. I thought he, like, I don't want to criticize exact plays because, like, I was not super familiar with the lists, and I think that they were playing, like, probably at a higher level than I was watching, and, like, you couldn't see all the cards for sure. But, like, I think he kept one he maybe shouldn't have kept in Game 5, and then tapping out on the last turn was, like, pretty clearly not what he wanted to do, I think. And, like, I've seen a number of comments to that effect in various media by people who have some idea what's going on. But that was just like I totally understand what I think he was thinking, which is like you get to the deciding game of like a match you really want to win, and you look at your hand and you think about mulliganing, and then you're like, not like this, like not like this, and then you keep, and like I'm fairly certain that's what happened, but I mean maybe it didn't.
I didn't watch the match, so I have no comments. So you guys, by all means.
I mean, I know, Jarvis, you were fairly close to the match. Like, do you have anything to say about that match? I assume you, like, have a fairly good idea of what happened.
Cho has a habit of keeping somewhat loose hands. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, well, like, do you think that's a reasonable assessment? Like, as someone who...
I think that's basically what happened.
Okay.
We just
All right.
kept a somewhat loose hand, and it gave him time to draw out of his mulligan to 5.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty, and then in the finals, the one thing I wanted to note about the finals before we get to the actual games was that they, like, the way they show the cards or the way they showed them in this coverage was they cut to an overhead camera, which is like the best way I can think of off the top of my head to show the cards, but it had this terrifying habit of showing Gardenis's like pulsating crotch while he was sitting there, like, like it was.
Where can I see that?
Well, just like
link?
the Twitch TV archives of the Pro Tour was like I don't know, he just has this thing where he like fidgets in his chair, and it's like you couldn't see Hayne at all, but every single time they cut to that, it was kind of terrifying. But yeah, I mean they played some games, and like there were a lot of mulligans. Like there were a bunch of games. I think they traded games where one dude went to 4, and then the next game the other dude went to 5, and they both just got obliterated. And you were like, okay, this is the finals of the Pro Tour. This is how I Magic. Game 5 was like Gardenis kept a one-lander on the play with a Pilgrim that I think was like pretty obviously a keep, and then just like he flipped Terminus on turn 1, and then he bricked a land for 7 turns or something stupid, and he died, and like...
Sounds about right.
Yeah, like it was... I think there are a lot of ways Gardenis could have won that match if the cards had gone differently, but that was just sort of my overall feeling about the match.
This is a crazy idea, but what about instituting a free mulligan in just the top 8 of a Pro Tour if you're going to try to make it a viewer spectacle? We already have the 5-game matches, so it's already different from the Swiss portion. What about giving a free mulligan to players as well to try to get more games in there with full hands of cards?
I don't know if I can get on board with that. I think that has some serious balance implications.
So does like giving them 5 games.
That's true. I don't think it's completely unreasonable, but I do think it has some serious balance implications. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I mean, that's a really interesting question, especially with how they're changing top 8s. Like, person with the highest Swiss standings gets to go first, and 5 games instead of 5 games instead of 3. I don't. Somebody just put in the chat free bulls at Finkel's jurisdiction, which is really good.
So do you have to like yell over from the other table like, Finkel, can I mull? Like.
That's easily the best comment of the day. But I don't think that you can do that. I think that one's over the line because of combo decks. Part of the reason that they lose is because of mulligans. Nah, I think that's a little bit too much. I think, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I'll say that.
That's about what I thought of it too. Don't feel like you're disagreeing with me. I just wanted to throw it out there because it does sort of suck. One like
No,
two of the games.
I like it. Shake it up a little bit.
The finals are just like this guy Mulligan.
Yeah.
I don't dislike bringing new ideas to the forefront.
I mean, I will say that the multiplayer cubes I've played, like over the last few years, already play with that rule. Which is not to say they should institute it on the Pro Tour because like multiplayer cubes, but like it is possible to play like it does make for more actual interactive games of Magic. That is what I will say. And it also changes the balance of how you play Magic. So there are things you have to consider about that, but it makes for more interactive, viewer-friendly games.
It definitely changes the balance on like what hands you'll keep because like the first hand you're just like if it's like close at all you're just like F it, shipping it back.
That's correct.
Something like that.
That's a good point that it doesn't necessarily actually stop people from mulliganing a lot because it's really easy to take that free mulligan.
Yeah, if my hand is sketch at all, like for example, Finkel's hand with 4 lands, Garrick, Silverheart, it's just gonna ship it, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's a freebie, he's just like F this, gonna go find a better 7. So
yeah.
What's next, Adam?
All right. I think I don't know if there's anything else fascinating we want to cover from PD Barcelona. I just wanted to make sure we had a space at the end for Jarvis, since he is actually the only person who is at Barcelona on our current cast, to show like if anything really fascinating or entertaining happened like while you were on Barcelona. I know sometimes people tell stories about how they got back at 12:50 a.m. or something like that with 75 bottles of beer and then won 900 matches the next day or something. So if something like that happened,
yeah, Jarvis, you look like an alcoholic.
Yeah,
you
you look like a party animal. Did anything sweet happen? I mean, if nothing, that's fine. We can just carry on. But
I mean, I did go to a bar and stayed there until I had to leave for the airport with a bunch of the people from our group. But nothing really, like, astounding happened there.
Alright. There weren't any, like, fantastic pickups based on, like, I am a Pro Tour champion, like...
Did a woman buy you 3 margaritas and then you went home?
You're butchering the story, Steven, but no.
I think the
they
better...
were Manhattans.
Oh, they were Manhattans. Alright.
Yes.
That's what butchering that story means.
I think the better answer...
You destroyed the story. You named the wrong drink.
Yeah.
The better answer would be that just happens at every bar. Like, just every single time. Jarvis is like, too good for you. Like, not interested.
Adam, was this a setup to show how mundane Jarvis's life is to everyone at home?
No, I think Jarvis's life is sweet. No one buys me 3 Manhattans. No one buys me margaritas even. So, like...
It's because you don't leave your house.
Well, I have stuffed dogs. Can you blame me? Like...
Okay. Jarvis, I think it was a setup. So...
got me very good.
Yeah, got him.
Do you feel like, Jarvis, how'd you play in the tournament? Do you feel like you played okay and your deck just wasn't quite there, or what was it?
So, I actually think the Naya deck that we all played was only average. Like, because it's like a very obvious deck, it's very easy for other groups to put that deck together and figure out, like, okay, other people are going to play this deck, how do we beat it? And I think that's basically what happened. And also the mana kind of sucks in the deck. if you look at the mana base we had, it wasn't really that solid. And we could have probably played one more land to fix that. And I feel like we definitely should have had 4 Borderland Ranger.
Definitely should have 4 of those.
Here's the kicker. Was your deck better than GT's deck?
Well, GT won 05 with his blue-black control deck, so...
Got him. Moving on. Uh, so let's, I feel like we did enough to PT Barcelona. Like, I think the coverage was good, the games were good for showing, not necessarily good for Magic the Gathering. Hayne got there, more power to him. Can we move on to the Star City? Like it
Yeah,
is.
dude.
All right. So let's move on to the Star City. We have the next upcoming large event is the GP in Minneapolis. There's also a GP in Europe, which is limited, but we're not going to go all crazy about that because we're not in Europe and because it's sealed. So get sealed on. But there was a Star City happening this past
Hold
weekend.
on, Adam, just a sec. This is a different format from the one you're meant to open Bloodline Keeper in. So maybe we could leave people with, like, open white rares. Okay,
Well,
now we can...
Yeah, I mean, open some sealed rares, but like, yeah, that was weird.
Expert advice.
Yeah, but in the Star City top 8, there were an actual metric shit ton, and this is the scientific measurement of Moby aggro decks. That is actually all that there was in the top 16. There were actually two ramp decks which were hiding, like they were super stealth ramp decks because they were classified as red-green aggro in the Star City database for some reason. But like there were 2 ramp decks in the top 16, but the other 14 decks were literally all aggro decks. Like there are 6 Delvers, 4 Birthing Pod, 3 red-green, and 1 red-white humans, which is just back with the exact same rep. Like my horse has haste, take 90. So it's just, like, it's all aggro decks, and that's kind of bewildering to me. Like, I understand it was going on at the same time as the Pro Tour, so, like, there's the same sort of, it's a new format, the ringers are all not there, like, the guys playing the sort of mid-rangey aggro decks will play, and someone's got to win, but I feel like Titan decks are almost 100% where you want to be in this format, because they just poop all over the aggro decks, and there was just a startling shockage of Titan decks of any variety, like no Sun Titan decks, not really a ton of Primeval Titan decks. So yeah, Steven, you wanna go with that? Do you have things to say about it?
I was thinking it's like the first tournament. A lot of the really connected people aren't there. Probably a lot of these guys just have a Delver deck and don't have a Ramp deck because that was the go-to before. I don't really think that Delver is suddenly an unplayable deck or anything, but certainly I would have expected much more Ramp. I think that it's very underrepresented.
Said, bring me home.
I really liked that Nyapod, the third place Nyapod list, had a Priest of Urabrask. That just makes me happy.
I like the Priest of Urabrask too.
Yeah. That's all I got. It's standard. It looks like the same standard pretty much, Adam.
Said, I think you will. Yeah, I think you will have actual things to say.
Of course I have things to say. It's me.
Yeah.
I can listen to myself talk for hours. It's an interesting format. First of all, LOL at every person who thought Cavern of Souls was going to make the format terrible. That's just a big funny joke. But it's easy to say that ramp is the place that you want to be. But the interesting thing that's happened is that the aggressive decks are coming at you from fairly different angles, so that, you know, the answer is for a ramp that would sync up well against Delver, which is like Whip Flare and Slagstorm, don't sync up that well against red-green aggro because of Strangleroot guys and some other cards. Like, obviously Slagstorm is still, like, good against them, but, like, there are draws where, you know, they just, like, produce a bunch of Strangleroot guys, and then, like, your Whip Flares and your Slagstorms are very, very bad. Whereas, like, your Slagstorm and your Whip Flares against Delver are very good. And then, you know, like, in addition to that, those cards are like very bad against Hero Bladehold. So the aggressive decks are coming at you from like a couple of different angles where you have to diversify your answers. But then like if you just gear your deck towards trying to beat, those three aggressive decks, which are green red, whatever version of humans people are playing, which should probably be red white, and then Delver, you play against someone who's prepared for the ramp mirror and you're going to get obliterated. Or if you play against someone who is playing Esper like a Sun Titan deck, you may not be prepared enough to be able to beat those kind of decks. So it's interesting. Like, it doesn't really surprise me that these aggressive decks are doing well, because these aggressive decks have gotten some really nice tools. Between like a card like Warfare Avenger, a card like Lightning Mauler, which I think that card's absolutely insane, oddly enough. And I think that card makes like red-white humans just a deck because...
get on my back, boys.
What's that?
I said, get on my back, boys. Like,
yeah, Hero Bladehold with haste is just like the actual nightmare for me playing ramp. And like, if I have to like waste a turn like whip flaring a Lightning Mauler, I'm just like, it just screws up everything I want to do.
Well,
you know?
I mean, even their 3-drops are absurd with haste, right? Like, Mirren Crusaders coming at you on turn 3, and you're like, ooh, like...
yeah, you're like, oh, I need to, like, deal with this. And then it screws up you wanting to go, like, 2-4-6 or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So like, that card alone makes that deck, like, very, very good. But it doesn't surprise me that the aggressive decks are doing well because they got some, some quality cards printed for them. And it makes it difficult for a control deck, like an Esper deck, to say, it's very easy to build an Esper deck that destroys those 3 aggro decks, or has like a very good game against those 3 aggro decks, but then like you're very bad in the Esper mirror, or like you're much worse off against Ram. So it's pretty rock paper scissory, and then it gets down to like, what you think people are going to play. Like if I was going to Minneapolis this weekend, I would prep for those aggro decks and like the mirror and just like pray to God I don't get paired against a Sun Titan deck, because like I'm gonna cut my fireballs. I'm gonna cut like my Thruns and some other stuff, and just hope like I don't get paired against that Sun Titan deck, because I'm not gonna be that well, because like you can't build your deck like a rock deck and be like 48% against everything, because that just doesn't work anymore. So the format is healthy, which is a good thing. It's not gonna be dominated by Delver anymore. That's not gonna happen. But I mean, Delver's still gonna have good results.
Are you sure that Delver doesn't still dominate this format?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that Delver doesn't just dominate this format now.
Certain. I don't know. I still think Delver's the best deck comfortably. I think if I were to like run a computer that had infinite power and solve this format optimally, it would have like 55 to 60% Delver decks in the format. I don't think that would be unreasonable.
Look, I think the nice thing is that like previous format, if someone asks you what the best deck is, it's like it's Delver, and if like you think otherwise, like you're pretty stupid.
Right.
Like I feel like in this format, if someone asks you what the best deck is, and like someone's like, well, I think it's green red aggro, I think that can be a true statement. If someone thinks that it's ramp, I think that can be a true statement. If you think it's blue white Delver, I think that's a true statement. Like, it's easy to say that like Delver's the best deck, but like green red aggro has just won like the past 2 Star City tournaments. I mean, not the toughest of competition, I understand, but a win is still a win, and there's still a lot of people there. And, that person still had to win, 11, 12 rounds of Magic. So, I think what's good is that there's a lot of diversity, and that there are a lot of Tier 1 decks, which makes it rock, paper, scissory. Even like someone can make an argument that Birthing Pod is the best deck. Do I know if it's true or false? Not at this point in time, but I could see an argument for it, and I definitely be willing to listen to it.
We'll never make that argument.
I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to attack Delver now that there weren't necessarily before Avacyn Restored. Like, I think you can beat it a lot more reliably now than you could before, which is the reason why it's no longer the best, like, very clearly the best deck. Not that I think it's terrible, but I think it's no longer just clearly like, well, you have the best proactive plan against everyone, so do that. Jarvis, I wanna go to you because I think you actually like know stuff about Standard and are going to be trying to build stuff there. Do you have things to say?
So
Yeah, I don't think there is really a clear best deck because there's like 9,000 different decks you have to worry about now, like Sed was saying. And
Mhm.
like trying to build a deck that beats all of them is basically not realistic.
It's called playing Delver, Jarvis.
I don't think Delver beats everything anymore.
I agree 100%
think
with that
we can get
assessment.
there. Do we just
Um,
think that red green aggro beats Delver? Do we think that ramp beats Delver now?
it depends a lot on the builds.
I think both of those decks can be built to beat Delver, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Um, I'm still excited about Wolfhair Silverheart, even though Sed told me he thought the card was bad. But we'll actually see if it's bad or not when I actually play a bunch of games with it. Um, the reason I think it's good is because, well, it's clearly terrible versus any black deck and it's bad versus Delver, but I think it's a huge threat in red-green aggro mirrors, and it's also a huge threat versus red-green ramp as well. Like, no red-green ramp deck can kill it without Beast Whip, essentially.
I definitely think that the card has its place. Um, for you, because I know like you just played an Naya deck at the Pro Tour. You had 4 Silver Hearts in your deck, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I don't want you to like fall into the trap of like it's like insane because at that Pro Tour like no one could kill Silverheart. Like
I, yeah, I was listing the ways that it could die in Standard, and basically it's just terrible versus any black deck, which is what I was trying to emphasize, but I think it's pretty good versus all of the other red-green decks.
well, I think it's like a really good card in the Red Green Mirror because typically Red Green Mirrors whoever has the biggest idiot wins. You know, so
Yeah.
like it's going to be good there, and I think it's pretty good against ramp. You know, situation dependent because, and I said this in my article on StarCityGames.com. I'm a company man. Um, you know, it costs 5 mana, 6 to Zenith for. You're typically going to have more Zeniths in your deck than Wolfhair Silverhearts. So if you want to be like a numbers guy, which I'm not because I'm stupid, it costs 5.5 mana or something like that, okay? Steven, you look like you want to kill yourself when I said that. And when you're playing against a deck like Ramp that can control your mana accelerants, and you only have 22 lands in your red-green deck, it's not realistic to be able to cast it on turn 5 on time, and you can't really rely on it. So, you know, that's where you're going to kind of get stuck, because, like, Zenithing for that, for 6 mana from a 22 land deck is a little bit difficult, all things considered. So, in the Pro Tour, you know, you played Silverheart, it resolved, and then, you know, like, if the person's behind a little bit, they are so far behind they can't come back, because, like, no one was playing Sever, no one was playing Victim of Night, stuff like that. Whereas, like, in this format, I mean, Delver's got Sag, Humans has O-Ring and Fiend Hunter. As you said, any Esper can, they don't even care. They can kill it a bunch of different ways.
Oh, a 5-mana 4/4. Tell me more. Like,
Yeah.
So
They
maybe
don't
I'm
care
like
at all.
missing
But like,
something.
if you want it for the red green
Cedric,
mirror,
hold on, Cedric, hold
yeah.
on. Maybe I'm missing something. For the last like, I don't know, 5 years or something, hasn't the entirety of standard been 4 mana leaks, 4 vapor snags? Like that is standard. I know you play ramp a lot, but I've been playing Delver, and I'm pretty sure standard is 4 vapor snags, 4 mana leaks.
I think we've
That's a thing.
established it's bad against Delver, yes.
Okay.
I wanted to keep establishing because I can tell he's enjoying it.
You don't understand
I
how
don't
bad
know.
it is. It's actually minus
You guys
7 time walks. Like, it's...
Keep enjoying talking about all these like decks that are gonna somehow be good in standard and stuff that play 5 casting cost 4/4s.
I mean, I'm not supportive of it.
It's true. He was not supportive of this idea that I had.
Yeah.
I'm very against it. Like, I think it is good against like I think it's good against the red green mirror, and I think it might be good in another matchup. I think it's bad a lot of places, and I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Holy crap! Did you see what happened when this dude cast Wolfhair Silverheart for Pro Tour? Holy shit!" And then it's going to get snagged, and you're going to want to kill yourself, and you're like, "Why am I playing so many of these in my deck?" So that's what I think is going to happen.
That seems like a reasonable assessment to me.
I agree with all
Yeah.
of those points you just made. I just
I want
said,
a
like,
phantasmal angel.
I said I just want it versus red-green mirrors, which is essentially the only place I want it.
Yeah, it seems good there. The
Okay.
the place where you can play like increasing savagery and just make things increasingly savage.
That is, in fact, the place.
I just
Uh,
don't want you to fall into some sort of psycho trap because of how good it was at the PT.
Yeah,
That's all.
I will definitely not play 4 in any standard deck for
Yeah.
now.
Because like I know
For
that
now.
in the comments of my Red Green article this week, some dude was like, "Yo, what about Wolford, Silverheart, and Ram?" And I'm like, "What?
I
What does
mean,
that do?"
you cast it on turn 3 and then you attack for 90 with your birds. Obviously.
I
Next
was like,
question.
"What am I even pairing it up with? I normally don't even have a creature in play." Like, Primeval Titan, you are an 8/8 or a 10/10. Let's go.
Okay.
Like,
Let me close this out by saying this. If you were going to GP Minneapolis, what would you play? What's like in an ideal world, assuming you could play anything. Steven, what would you play? I think we know the answer, but Steven, if
Yeah, I'm still on Delver,
all
and
right,
like the list isn't even changing much. I, I'm not
you're just
afraid.
on like Bing's slash Jarvis's Delver list from like before, like the one Batterskull, one Pike, two Swords, two Stalkers, like two Thought Scours, two Gut Shots, that sort of thing.
I mean, we can like switch like 6 of those cards, and it's
Okay,
still.
but the Delver shell.
I'm happy to show up with Delver. Yeah.
All right, Sed, what are you doing?
I'm walking in with Ramp. It's the deck I know the best. I'm not going to audible at this point. I mean, deciding what the 75 cards are going to be is going to be really tough, and I'm doing that this weekend for some people that are attending the tournament and going to PTQs and stuff. But I'm playing Wolf Run.
Okay, Jarvis, what would you be doing?
I would also probably play Primeval Titans in my deck, because I like casting Primeval Titan.
Okay, and I think the answer for me is I would definitely be on a Titan deck. Probably Primeval Titan is the deck that I would be playing, but I can see Sun Titan decks too. Like I know there are some people that like just don't like Primeval Titan decks and don't like playing that style of deck, and I think you can very reasonably get to a Sun Titan deck as well. It just depends on what you think the metagame's going to look like. But like they're both sort of things that can stomp on the sort of mid-rangey aggro things that have been really big in the last two Star Cities, and that's what I would expect would show up a lot.
Unless
So you
there's
know what's
Delver,
going
I
to
bet
happen,
you guys
right?
they'll do.
There's going to be like 4 people with blue-black or something, and they're going to ruin the
Yeah,
tournament.
Delver's going to win the tournament, and Steven's going to call us all stupid next week.
I mean, sure.
I mean, Delver may not win the tournament, but if there are less than 6 Delver decks in the top 16, I'm gonna be like shocked, absolutely mortified.
Okay.
It's
I mean,
3/2 flyer for 1, Cedric.
you raise
Yeah, they'll print anything. They don't care anymore.
you raise a good point. So for the Legacy Open, I don't want to touch on it too much. I just want to ask one super quick question. I was hoping we would have someone here who could actually give me a new answer to this, because I know what Sed's going to say already. Like, we've been over this a little bit, but
I'm going to change it. I'm going
oh,
to change
okay.
it for once.
I just want to say, is Rug Delver the best deck in Legacy? Because that seems like sort of the question that I get when I look at the Legacy top 8, and I'm like, well, there's a bunch of these, and I look at the list, and I'm like, okay, is this just what everyone should be doing? Let's start with Jarvis this time, because Jarvis always has to go last. Jarvis, what do you think? Rug Delver?
Why would it be the best?
Because I think it has posted consistently the best results.
That doesn't mean it's the best, it just means people are lazy and just want to play something that they know is solid.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be the best. I'm asking, do you think it is the best?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think if there's a bunch of holes in its game that you can exploit, and I think, well, I'm stealing probably Sed's thunder here, but Goblins exploits a lot of those holes very well.
Oh, really?
Versus Rug. And like, I've never been unhappy to play against Rug with Goblins in 2-mans especially, because I'm just like, alright, kill all of your guys, you're dead.
I mean, no thunder stolen, because I don't agree with you. So, I mean, I agree with you in part that people are lazy and are going to go to the Star City coverage and go, hey, what did the best this weekend? Oh, Rug Delver did. Okay. Um, but I think that it keeps doing the best because it's the best deck. And because any doofus can pick up that deck and play it well enough to have a relevant result in the tournament. I don't think that some doofus can pick up a Goblins deck and do well in a tournament. So I think that makes Rug the best deck. I think Maverick is a pretty good deck, probably the second best deck, but I think that Rug is definitely the deck to beat in Legacy.
Okay. Steven, do you have any fascinating theories about Rug Delvers? You just want Delvers in every format?
I think just like in Standard, it's the proactive plan. It's like, it's the one. There's not much of a weakness to the deck. It's Fish. It's like Fish has been this deck for 12 years. I don't know. I just made up 12, maybe 20 years. But whether it's like the best deck, yeah, probably. It's I would say it's the best solid proactive plan.
Alrighty. That's reasonable. I would guess it's probably the best deck, but I do not know. I don't want to claim expertise over Legacy because I don't think I really have any.
Oh,
But
well, way to pick a side at least.
I mean, I think it probably is the best deck, but that's just based on my eyeballing.
Way to really just put your line in the sand. I appreciate that.
Sorry, sir. Alright, I want to bring up one more thing before I think we shut her down, because we've been rambling for a little bit, and this one is probably going to stretch a little bit. But I want to talk about the Cavern of Souls ruling, which I think you were very excited for, Said.
I'm not. It actually sounds like Jarvis is super excited about this. Let Jarvis go first.
Yeah. Anyway, this happened against Matt Costa. Is that correct at the PT?
I was there. I was staying with Costa. He was in my hotel room. So, like, after whatever round this happened, like, so the guy who dissipated his Huntmaster when he played it off Cavern went 8-0 on day one and then didn't...
Well, before I let you go, can we just... Okay, yeah, you want to go for it?
Here's what happened. His first three lands are, like, red source, green source. Turn 4, he plays Cavern, names Human, and plays Huntmaster. His opponent taps 3 mana, plays Dissipate, looks at the Cavern and first thing is like, oh shit, like gets that expression on his face. Realizing that he thought he messed up, but then a light bulb went off in his head and he's like, oh, I can just call a judge because you didn't announce that you were using Cavern of Souls. I'm like, and the judge comes over and rules against Costa, and Costa's like, I deliberately sandbagged this 4th land to play it to just not give him any information. And, like, he's furious after this round, obviously, because, like, the guy was just allowed to dissipate his Huntmaster, and we instantly lost after that.
Okay, well, before I go to the other two people, I just want to make, like, exactly clear what occurred here. Like, he played Cavern of Souls, he named Human, he tapped 4 lands, including Cavern of Souls, and lands that could independently produce red and green, and cast Huntmaster. And then his opponent dissipated it, and was like, you did not specify you were paying colored mana off the Cavern. And then a judge was called because there was no agreement. The judge ruled that his opponent was correct. He had not specified that he was paying colored mana from the Caverns, so it was in fact a spell which could legally be countered. It was countered and he lost. So let's go to Steven next. Steven, give us your thoughts.
Like, I don't know what the official policy is on this. I'm not a judge with all the, like, the little booklets about, like, this is what we do when someone's a complete jackass and dissipates wrong. But I would not only have, like, here's my opinion. And I was reading the coverage, and Nassif did something a lot like this. His opponent cast a creature with Cavern of Souls, and he, like, tried to counter it and then called a judge when his opponent said, no, I was paying with Cavern of Souls because he hasn't specified. That was probably just when Steve was slow playing, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
My opinion is
that
that
was so good.
yeah, my opinion is that if somebody, like, I think that he should get some sort of warning or possibly a game loss for calling the judge there. I think it's, like, that bad what he just did. And, like, I'm not making the policy or anything, but that just is revolting. Oh my god. Yeah.
Alright, Cedric. Lay down your law.
Hello, how are you? Aren't gray areas in Magic fun?
Yeah, kinda. They're fun
Aren't they
for
great?
they're fun for podcasts.
They are fantastic for talking about. So this ruling reminds me of a different ruling that used to happen in the past, and I'm not sure if you guys have experience with the Demigod of Revenge ruling.
Ooh, I remember the demigod rolling.
Yeah, where you cast a Demigod of Revenge, its effect goes on the stack of returning all cards in Demigod of Revenge back into play. And then if you counter it before you resolve the effect, then you can, they mana leak it, and then you're like, oh, okay, resolve the Demigod trigger, put it back into play. Nice play, stupid. Okay? So, and I love the storytell because at Nationals, that Michael Jacob top 8'd with Mono Red, he won this one. So he was playing at Sam Stein, and Sam Stein was playing some deck with Cryptic Command. And MJ cast a Demigod of Revenge. Sam Stein Cryptic Commands it, draw a card, he immediately puts it in the graveyard, says go. Next turn, Sam Stein does his thing, MJ draws his card, plays Demigod of Revenge. Sam Stein Cryptic Commands it, draws a card, and then MJ has 2 Demigods in play attacking for 10.
Got him!
And so now it's just like, what? Why are those there? Trigger, dude. So, I don't know how... I feel like when things like this happen, when they print cards like this and have rulings like this, I think and I don't really know where I stand on what should have happened in that particular situation with Matt Costa. I think the easiest way to resolve something like this is during the players' meeting. If there is a card that has confusion like this, they should go something along the lines of, hey, for Cavern of Souls, if you are going to be using Cavern of Souls to make your card uncounterable, you have to announce that you're using the mana for it, or something like that. They should make an announcement like that, because I guarantee what happened at the Pro Tour is this. But Jarvis, what was the ruling on Costas? It got countered?
It got countered, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I guarantee in like round 8 or something, like some other round, the same thing happened, and the judge is like, yeah, it's not countered. And then you're like, okay, man, like, what about in Costa's match where that happened? And the judge is like, that's my ruling, blah, or whatever. And then it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, which one is it? Is it this or is it that? And to ever avoid something like that, they should just say something during the initial players meeting where they're like, here's how we're ruling it for the tournament. Like, they did that in the Grand Prix in 2002 the Braves tournament that I told you guys about. Before the tournament, they were like, if you don't attack the Braves, you lose. You don't like it, suck it. That's the rule. So don't forget, because when we come over and you're like, and your opponent calls a judgment like he didn't attack the Braves, you can't be like, but why? I was gonna win. No, that sucks. You lose. Shut your mouth. That's how it should be. So that there's no confusion. And the only person that you can blame for the confusion, I feel like, is the person operating the tournament, the head judge, because I feel like this is something they should make clear so that games of Magic should not be decided on that.
Mm-hmm.
They shouldn't be decided on stupid crap like that, where it's like very unclear what Costa's intentions were, and it sucks that, to me, Matt's 20, so he doesn't really know how to argue, and he's like a pretty reserved guy, so he's not going to like get in the judge's face like I would, or intimidate him, or something like that. His argument is, well, I sandbagged this land so that he wouldn't have the information. It's like, yeah, that's probably like a really good play. That has no bearing on my ruling. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet that's a really great tactic, and that's why you've top 8 Pro Tour and won a Grand Prix. But I mean, why I don't judge. I don't even understand why that's good. You know, so Matt came at it from a very poor angle. Like, there's no way he's going to win his judge's ruling, his ruling, or anything like that, based off of what he did. But at the end of the day, just announce it during the players' meeting. I know that players are supposed to know the rules. They're supposed to come to the tournament with dice and paper and sleeves and blah and blah and blah. And just announce it, and then there's never going to be a problem. And then they can't argue with you. And then when you give them the big suck it ruling, they can't even argue. They're like, "Yep, I deserve it," and just keep playing.
I don't think they actually anticipated this being a problem, because the first time they announced it was like after round 2 or 3 of the PT that you have to announce it. Or maybe it was round 1. I might be conflating the rounds now. But like they did announce it, but they just didn't figure out it was a problem before the tournament, which is pretty awkward actually.
So hold on a sec here.
Can
Did
you
they
ex-
announce this before the Costa ruling?
No, they announced it after.
Okay, good. Because otherwise it would be like, well, there's just no discussion then. Like he just is dumb.
Yeah.
But like, okay. So I want to give my
Can you
view real.
guys explain to me why that would ever be what they chose? Like, why would you ever want people to have to announce you're testing with Cavern? Is it for the opponent so they can, like, they don't have to, like, pick up your lands and look at which ones you tapped when they're thinking about countering it?
Can
Is that
I
it?
can I do
That's
my
the only
thing
upside.
before you
Go for it, Adam.
rejoinder? I feel like this comes back to basically the eternal judging debate, or at least over the last 5 or 6 years. Like there was a big thing a while ago when they started allowing judge rulings to follow the intent of the player. There was this big argument, and I've had this with a bunch of people, about like whether judging on intent is good versus whether you should just judge strictly on what has occurred in the game. Because you get into these sorts of arguments where the player is like, I intended to play correctly. And you're like, okay. Like, obviously you intended to play correctly. Like, I intended to win the game instead of losing. And you're like, well, okay. That's nice. And like, a lot of judge calls are about, like, when someone has screwed up somehow, and it's causing them to lose, and then you get into this spot where it's like, well, does the fact that they were not intending to lose mean that they shouldn't lose, or that they should in fact win? And there are a lot of like really unclear spots about that, and like I think the demigod is like, well, obviously I wanted the trigger to resolve, and then like like a lot of these things come up and you get to the same spot. And for the most part, I feel that you want to not rule by intent. I'm not in favor of ruling by intent. But in this particular case, I think it's so blatantly obvious what's occurring here. I I would not. I don't happen to agree with how the judge ruled because I think it's just so obvious, like what's happening. There can be clearly no doubt.
Don't you have to like give him the dissipate back or something then? Because obviously it wasn't that clear to him, and his intent was not to try to dissipate
Um.
stuff. Cannot be countered.
I don't think that's necessarily true because you get in a lot of spots where like someone can just opportunity judge call, like the way Jarvis described it. And I want to say that I think the way it came up is not actually relevant to the judge ruling, which is like goes to what said about Costa approaching it the wrong way when he's talking to the judge. Like I agree, it's the right play to hold Cavern because you want to hide the information you have Cavern from your opponent. Like that's 100% correct, and I'm sure that's why he did it the way he did. But like, it's not relevant to the judge ruling how it came up in the game. I don't think. Like, what's relevant is just the situation, how it happened, and I think it's very reasonable what Jarvis said, that the guy just like dissipated it and then looked and was like, oh, there's a caverns in play, I'm dumb. And then he was like, but wait, what if judge call? And then he called the judge and the spell was dissipated. So like, I don't think it's fair to say that like he can never dissipate there intentionally. Um and intent-based rulings are really finicky, but I think it's incredibly obvious in this particular case, like, what is supposed to happen. But I don't know, like, I also would like to agree with Sed's greater point that just having this announced in the players meeting would remove any problem. Because like even if they say like whatever, like you have to put your pants on your head when you cast a spell with Cavern of Souls for it to resolve, like at least you know when you're playing. Like he
Yeah,
dissipates
you
your
have no
spell,
there.
and I'm like, well, I'm still wearing my pants, so I guess it's over here now. Like that's as long as you know, that's fine.
I mean, there's no gray. There'll be no gray if they just make an announcement, which is at the end of the day all that you can ask for. Like, and it's so easy to do. That's the thing that drives me crazy about it because it makes it so easy for the judge and it makes it so easy for the player. You know, there will be no confusion on either side. The judge is going to come over. What happened? Ruling. Have a good day. And there's just no argument. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Can I just say how excited I am to try to cast Steam Core Weird off Cavern of Souls? It's gonna be on Moto. That's gonna. I have no idea how that could possibly not work.
That's just yeah, just as a side note, like one of my favorite things about Magic Online is that never happens because the interface, like there are so many things wrong with the Moto interface, but one of the things that is not wrong with the Moto interface is that this never happens. Like
No, that's not true. If you have colorless mana in your mana pool and a blue and a red and you cast Steam Core Weird, it doesn't take the red mana ever. So actually sometimes it always happens. But at least it's consistent. And usually it doesn't happen.
At least there's no gray.
well like on Moto you can do it correctly and then it works correctly, or you can do it wrong and then like I actually had someone cryptic command my demigod on Moto and then it came back into play and hit him. But it was just like, well, you just countered it with the trigger on the stack. Like that's
Right.
what you did.
Yeah.
Like, and now there's a demigod in play, and like we don't have that problem. And that's one of the things I really, really like about playing Magic Online. Like that is by far my least favorite thing about playing in person.
That's like the only thing I like about playing on Magic Online.
Yep, I agree.
So, yeah,
I'm
that's
there
the
for the
only
ladies.
enjoyable aspect of it. Yeah, where the interesting thing about this situation too is like, not only is it like a bad situation, but now it gets, and people brought this up in the chat, and I know that one of you guys said it. It's like, all right, does he get to dissipate back or no? And it's like if the judge rules that he can't counter it, or that it's uncounterable, is he going to get to dissipate back or not?
Yeah.
Like, how far are you willing to rewind? You know, that sort of thing. And then it just gets just like really bad because now you've got like, not only is like player A mad who dissipated it, but like now it dissipates in the bin, and it's like, well, like I wouldn't have done that, and then then it's like, well, that sucks, bro, because like your dissipate's gone, you're just a big stupid, and now it's just like, come on, like now what are we doing?
Right.
Said that other ruling actually came up. Like some guy, the only way he could cast like a Sigarda was off a Cavern, so he taps all of his mana, doesn't announce anything. His opponent dissipates it, and then there's a judge call, and the guy was allowed to get his dissipate back, which is kind of awful.
I feel like in that particular case, you can just make the argument that like you should have just called the judge to verify before you cast dissipate. Like it's on the stack. It's not like you're gonna call the judge and your opponent's gonna be like, back off the stack. Like it's on the stack, so you can just call the judge. But if your decision was like cast dissipate, call the judge, then like, well, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have to live with the fact that dissipate's on the stack now. Like I consider myself pretty hardline in terms of like players keeping track of their own triggers and like actively playing the game and like prison rulesing people at the highest level. Like I really want the players to be responsible, and like if they make a mistake they can be punished for it because that's how I think Magic should be played. But like this is not one of those situations where I think that someone made a mistake and should be punished for it. I think it was like someone made a really obvious play and like didn't say something about it because A, he doesn't have to, or like wasn't aware that he had to, and B, like you just don't say every single thing when you're playing a live game of Magic the Gathering. Like when you play your land for the turn and pass on turn 1, you are not like, in my first main phase play a land, go to my beginning of combat step. Okay, are we done in combat? You're just like, land, go. And like those are things that happen in real life, and that's what leads us to these sorts of disagreements, but I think this one is so out there.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to make the argument like, they didn't know that this was going to come up at the tournament. They, that sort of thing. But I mean, that doesn't really hold much weight with me. I feel like that's kind of like the job of the judging staff to anticipate these problems that could occur and be prepared to make sure that they don't occur.
Sure.
That sort of thing. So that side of the argument doesn't really hold much weight with me. But I mean, that's how I am in life about everything. So, I could see why you would disagree with me on that. But as far as there are some people in the chat who are talking about you can't target it with a counter spell, a Cavern card, but that's not true. You can target uncounterable cards with a counter spell as much as you want. It just doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there are situations where that's advantageous. If you need to get cards out of your hand from a sudden impact or something, then you can just be like, yeah, spell snare your vexing shusher. Now your card won't kill me. So rarely does it come up as a positive interaction. But I mean, absorb Urza's Rage was also a thing. So.
Well, I mean, Sword of War and Peace is a real card in the format, and I've also killed people with storm spells where you just counter your own spell to add to storm count. These are things that occasionally come up.
Yeah. So I mean, it can definitely happen, and it's a tough situation to be in, and then it should be something. I feel like that situation should never come up if the powers that be are doing their job. So it's a very easy thing to fix.
I think that is reasonable. So is there...
I think we were all in agreement.
Yeah, is there anything else fascinating you guys want to bring up before we, shut her down? Because I think we're sort of closing in on the 2-hour mark. So...
Yeah, we are actually at the 2-hour mark.
So...
Want to do a couple of questions from chat? We didn't do that last week. I don't know if we just don't want to do that.
I don't mind a couple if they're sort of quick. I didn't get started right at 7, so I feel like we can finish with a couple of those. But I want to do final thoughts / shout outs before we go away, so I don't want to go too long. But sure, we can grab a couple.
All right, we'll take 3 questions.
Sure.
All right.
I hope no one asks.
This is one of my favorite parts, so I enjoy doing this. Nice job today, guys. Thank you.
That's a statement.
What are you even listening?
If I could take any CD on a desert island, what would it be?
Well, let's do it. Let's did it. Does it have to be a compact disc? Could it be an 8-track?
If it was in this exact moment in time, if I had to select a CD today to go on a desert island with, that CD would be Best Intentions by We Are the In Crowd. If I had to select a CD, I don't know, if it was today, it would be that CD because that's my favorite CD right now. It would probably be a Newfound Glory CD or a Paramore CD. I'm not sure which one because it's very tough for me to choose, but it would be one of those two.
For our viewers who are under 20, a CD is a compact disc, and that's what people use before MP3 players.
Jarvis, do you even listen to music?
Occasionally on Spotify.
You're a company man. Ooh, let's see. What other questions do we have? Anybody?
We have a bunch of state of the game takeoffs, which is fair, and let's see. Not much.
I like Not Stupid's question.
What is it? I don't see it.
God damn it.
I made the top 4 of states a few years ago. Should I consider going pro in Magic and playing full time?
I mean, can we answer that by saying that it should be at John Finkel's discretion? Is that...
Yes. You must consult Big Johnny Magic.
Yeah.
All right, I found the real question. What are your biggest pet peeves in Magic?
Biggest pet peeves.
Jarvis, this is you got to have one of these.
So I hate people who act like douchebags during the matches only. I can think of quite a few people who act this way. I'm sure you guys all know the type.
I mean, so are you saying that I'm safe because I'm consistent? Like, is that what's occurring here?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you're safe.
Excellent.
But I mean, let me. Oh, the best person I can think of that's an example of this is Conrad Kolos. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
if you. I
Captain douche.
I hate that guy with a burning passion.
Leader of the douchebags.
Yeah, no shit.
Alright, Steven, do you have a pet peeve? I feel like we can all do this pretty quick, I think.
Yeah.
I have one in recent memory. I don't know that this is like my biggest pet peeve, but I was playing a Pauper 2-man. I paid my 2 tickets, and we were going to play, and the winner would get an entire booster pack on Magic Online. And I was
Yeah.
playing Blue-Red Post, and my opponent started fireballing my clock with White Weenie in Game 1. In Game 1, he started tapping each of his lands, passing priority. So
Who's gonna get those
my pet
Doritos,
peeve-
man? Like,
My pet peeve is like the way that certain things influence a game of Magic on Magic Online to make you do just really, really stupid things that detract from the experience. Any sort of thing. Even what Jarvis is saying about being a dickhead in the game, that's a part of it. But definitely trying to time people out starting game 1, guys, that's a little ridiculous.
That's really good.
the land tapping thing is sweet.
Yeah.
Game 1, that's insane. That guy, that's his job right there. It has to be Magic Online.
He's one of those dudes who's in like the PE lobby who's like, I make $700 a week from grinding Moto, and you're like, who is this guy? Like, I've never seen him in my life.
Yeah. Baconator 5000 is his name.
Oh god, that guy.
Yeah, everyone hates him. Trust me.
No shit.
But there are 5,000 of him. You can't win.
There's so much bacon.
Yeah, that's correct.
My biggest peeve, it's actually not like that funny of one, actually. When I play in tournaments, and I always know when this happens, is like when I'm playing a deck that is like a huge favorite game 1, and then I lose game 1, and then like I win game 2 or whatever because like the guy like mold the 6 or something, and it was like very one-sided, and then like game 3 he's on the play, and it's like really important for him to be on the play, and then I lose. It's like really frustrating because like there's like just a bunch. The decks that I kind of play are like there's like some matchups like you're playing like White Weenie against like 5-color or something, and it's like super important for you to win game 1, so that game 3 you're on the play and you're giving yourself the best opportunity to win, and then like game 1 you like lose and you're just like, well, shit, like I'll probably win game 2 because I want to play, and then game 3 I'm just gonna get obliterated, and then it happens, and you're like, god damn it, like just wish I would have won game 1, so I would have had a good opportunity to win game 3. Like it happened with me when I was playing Dredge at Grand Prix Oakland against Living End. Like Living End game 1 is like the stone buy, because like they just put all your creatures in play for you, and you're like, nice deck, stupid. Or like all you have to do is get Iona in play and they can't win. But then like I ended up like just like I had like mulligan a couple times, and like my hand is like kind of stumbled together, and then like my opponent casts Living End and he's like, I'm never supposed to win game 1 ever. And I'm like, I know. And then like I lost like a very close game 3, and I'm like, this should never happen. No. Oh, it's just very frustrating. So that's like my biggest pet peeve. It's just like when I'm in a tournament, like kind of going deep, and then like I lose game 1, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh boy, I'm not really supposed to lose that game 1. This is gonna be a really hard match to win. So that's all.
Mine is kind of similar to Sed's because I feel like we are in most cases actually the exact same person. But I think I'm sure
I was skinny and white.
I'm sure yeah. Um, I'm sure people will correct me in the chat, but I think certainly the thing where I most consistently say really like tilted stupid shit is when people are playing a deck I feel like beats absolutely nothing but me. Like, they're just playing completely unjustified cards, and they're, like, in their main deck, and they're just, like, gonna get him! Like, this happened so much when I was playing humans, and people would just show up with Phyrexian Crusader decks, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
can't beat anyone! Like, why are you here? And they just kill me. They just kill me every time, and it's so dumb. Like, the one deck that really encapsulated that for me was like back when old extended was a thing, like as opposed to modern. There was this deck that was called like Frog in a Blender based on an old deck, and it was just like green red firebolts and phantom centaurs could literally never beat a non-aggro deck. Like, all you did was kill bears. It was just like, if you play bears, I will fuck you up. Because Phantom Centaur, that's 3 bears right there. And Fireball's 2 bears. And, like, it was just, like... And you'd get paired against them playing a deck with bears in it. You'd be like Boros with Goblin Legionnaire and, like, Savannah Lions. And you're just like, fuck you, dude. Like, can't you just play a deck that plays Magic against people as opposed to, like, a deck where, like, you get paired against someone and you're like, are you playing something I beat? What's... Oh, a combo deck. All right, I'll be on my way then. Like, it's so frustrating when people have the beats only you deck.
Yeah, that deck, I remember there was a deck like that in like pretty old extended when it was like GP Dallas like a bunch of years ago, where I think Paul Sheehan won with Aggro. I think it was happened, and like counterbalance was really getting big on the map or whatever, and then some people from Chicago showed up with beasts, which was like,
That was
contested. It was like Contested Cliffs, Bailoff, Spirit Monger, and just like the most motley crew of terrible cards. But like, if you're playing Counterbalance, Monger costs 5.
Yeah, I mean,
do?
the fact
and then
that
I'll cliff your Tarmogoyf with my Monger, and it's just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, how can you show up with this? And
well,
they play against like Xian. Xian's like very calmly like Burning Wishes for Devastating Dreams, and he's just like, then your opponent's like, I'll cast Ravenous Bailoff. Like, why are you here? Kill all of the things.
yeah, I mean,
But those decks are fun.
The fact that the answer to Counterbalance was play unplayable cards just made me laugh so hard. Because if you show up with a card that costs like 7 or something, you're like, he'd never be stupid enough to have a 7 drop in his deck. Like, you just tap 7 and you're like, this one! And they're like, you don't cost 7. Like, it's...
At that tournament, I think we can end it on this, actually. Pretty funny story. Neil Reeves, who most of these people probably don't even know now, which is crazy. Some hick from Arkansas who was just unbelievably good at Magic. And no one thought he was good because he talked like a hick from Arkansas. But he's an actual genius. He was playing Counterbalance in that tournament. And he played against some guy who was playing like a beast deck. And so the guy goes like 4th land. Neil has top Counterbalance in play. So he's like assembling the lock. The guy goes like 4th land, Phantom Centaur. Neil like spends his top, reveals a 4-mana card. And the guy's like, all right. Neil like end step, spin top, draw card, go. The guy's like, all right, here we go. Phantom Centaur number 2. And Neil's like, all right, spin top, reveal the 4. The guy's like, all right. Neil like spins at a turn, resets his stuff, draws his card, says go. The guy's like, oh yeah, I'm the water of the open fist. And Neil's like, spin top, counter it. The guy's like, really? Another 4? Neil's like, yeah, man, that sucks. Next turn, Neil just like spins, resets, says go. Guy's like, all right, draws his card. He's like, yes, I'm water of the open fist. Neil's like, yeah, counter that one too. And the guy's like, the 4th Cryptic Command? Are you serious? He's floating Damnation. He was floating Damnation. Thank you, AJ. And he's like, the guy's like, literally the 4th one, and Neil's like, yeah, the 4th one. And the next turn, the guy costs another 4, and Neil counters it, and the guy's like about to call a judge, and Neil's like, no. You're not calling a judge. I don't have 5 of these in my deck. And he's just like, oh. And then he just concedes. And just feels very stupid. But that's my story. One of the better stories in a Magic tournament I've ever heard.
All right. We shutting it down? We promised to take 3. We only took 2, but we got a lot of value out of that last one, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that was good.
All right. So let's do like last statements / shoutouts. I want to go last, I think. So let's start with Steven, since you're clockwise. You are the next. Steven, give us your final thoughts.
Just want to thank everybody for taking like a couple of minutes away from Diablo 3 to listen to us, and I assume that we'll be back to the internet exploding in the realm of Haragath or wherever we are pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean.